I just watched the first 2 episodes of Creature Commandos. Is it any good? How many butter pumps will it get? Let's find out.
My baby likes butter pumps.
Hello, butter babies. So let's talk about the first 2 episodes of Creature Commandos. Now, I've said in my trailer reactions before for this show, my biggest fear going into this series is that it would turn out to be a Suicide Squad knockoff. The trailers didn't give me anything that would differentiate this series from the 2 Suicide Squad movies we've already had, excepting Harley Quinn isn't a part of this show. Because of that, I really had low expectations for this series. I sincerely thought it was going to be, let's be the Suicide Squad without calling ourselves the Suicide Squad kind of a show. And to be honest, initially, especially in that first episode, there was literally nothing to separate it from the movies that preceded it, other than Harley Quinn not being in it. The setup is, and stop me if you've heard this one, once again, Amanda Waller is gathering a team of operatives together to do her bidding. Only this time, because she and Task Force X have been outed by her daughter, more on that in a minute, the government has shut down the program with the directives that no humans can ever be used again for Black Op secret missions. Her way around it? Use non-humans, of course, and what a ragtag bunch of non-humans we've got this go-round. We have the bride, who is the bride of Frankenstein. She's like the muscle of the group. Then we have G.I. Robot, who is a killing machine robot that was created during World War II for the express purposes of killing Nazis. Next up, we have Dr. Phosphorus, who is permanently radioactive, so Bernie. Then we have Nina Mazursky, who is an amphibian scientist. Think the amphibian man from The Shape of Water or Abe Sapien from the Hellboy franchise. Nina walks around with a fish tank on her head like SpongeBob visiting Sandy. And finally we have Weasel, who we met in the latest Suicide Squad movie. Frankenstein makes an appearance at the end of the first episode and takes center stage for a lot of the second episode, but isn't a part of the team. At least not yet. And just like Suicide Squad, they all have a device planted in the base of their skulls. But wait a minute, it's different than the Suicide Squad, I swear. You see, instead of that device blowing their head off if they get out of line, it only shocks them into submission. But it doesn't just shock the person who's out of line. Oh no, it debilitates the whole damn team. So if one messes up, the entire team has to take a metaphorical lap, if you will. See? It's different. And finally, just like that movie that this show is totally not like, this ragtag motley crew of non-humans tries to get away with as much mayhem as they possibly can. Weasel pees all over the floor of the transport van. The bride and Nina sneak out to have their own plot-advancing adventure. Dr. Phosphorus tries to seal the detonator, the zapper, from Rick Flag Sr. and destruction and chaos ensues. Yes, the late Rick Flag from the movies this show totally isn't based on was a junior. His dad takes up the mantle as a leader of the group in this show. More on that in a minute as well. So, this Task Force M for monsters instead of X for hell if I know, has an almost impossible hill to climb to differentiate itself from its copy and paste predecessor. And honestly, it pulls it off, but just barely. By the end of the second episode, Creature Commandos has differentiated itself. Man, I can't talk today. It's differentiated itself barely enough to make me let go of the comparisons and allow this show to stand on its own 2 feet. But the only reason why it pulls it off is time. While we had a little over 4 hours over 2 movies in total to get to know all the characters in the Suicide Squad movies, we have around 3 hours, 7 half-hour episodes to get to know these characters all over one mission. And it looks like we'll do just that. It looks like we'll get to do a backstory deep dive on one of the Task Force M players every week. Think of it like Lost, which is, by the way, what James Gunn himself has compared this show to. So last week, it was The Bride. And this week, damn it, Stephen, can't talk today. It looks like G.I. Robot is up to bat, and we'll get to do a deep dive on his backstory. Because of the backstory deep dives each week, it gives each character room to breathe and grow, while also tying the current action to their backstory, thereby advancing the plotline again. Think Lost. That is literally the only thing that substantially differentiates this series from the Suicide Squad movies. If it didn't have that, it would be a mirror image of those movies. And it's through those backstories Creature Commandos really is allowed again to stand tall on its own. They've only given us one backstory so far, which is The Bride, but man, is it a doozy. So dark, so twisty, so tragic and sad. I'm not going to get into all the details here because I'm really trying to stay relatively light on the spoilers in this review, but the bride's backstory goes there. In half an hour, she goes from just being the muscle of the group to someone who has gotten a raw deal in her life over and over and over again. And she's re-traumatized in that same way over and over again to this very day. She's been quote unquote alive since 1831. So yeah, almost 200 years of fucked up shit happening to her over and over again. This second episode featuring The Bride was so good, I can't wait to see next week's episode, where again we get to take a deep dive into G.I. Robot's backstory. Speaking of story, this entire series is written by James Gunn, who happened to write and direct the latest movie that this movie is totally not based on. In that movie, James was given freedom to make it however he wanted. The result was the Suicide Squad was extremely violent and extremely profanity-laced. This show is no different. If this was released in the theaters, it would definitely be a hard R. It's not made for children at all. In fact, there are at least 2 graphic rated R sex scenes in it so far. I wouldn't advise you turning this on for the kiddos. Its content simply is not made for them. Now, this next part, in my opinion, won't matter as much to you general audiences, members out there that are watching this review. So if you are a general audience person, you might want to, go grab a snack, go pee, skip ahead a little bit to the next section of the review, since this next part is strictly for us nerds. Are they out? Okay, listen up, nerds. James Gunn has made the answer to the whole question of what is canon versus what is not canon in this universe very plain and very simple. So listen up. In this new universe, if things are mentioned that were a part of the DCEU, then they are canon in the DCU. If it's never mentioned, it didn't happen. I say that because there were more than a few instances in this show where things were either seen or mentioned that were firmly in the DCEU. Those things include Amanda Waller's daughter outing her Task Force X program in a news conference that was seen around the world, which was on Peacemaker. Rick Flag Jr. dying, which was on the Suicide Squad. Belle Rev is still where Amanda Waller pulls prisoners from for her various programs, again, on Suicide Squad and the Suicide Squad. GBS, or Galaxy Broadcasting System, is still the DC's main cable news channel. Project Starfish and all the events from the last Suicide Squad movie, including, as I said, Rick Flag Jr. dying, are all canon in this new DCU. Creature Commandos happens roughly about 2 years after the events of Project Starfish. And finally, the age gap between Rick Flag Sr. and Jr. is explained. Sr. had Jr. when he was 18 years old. Now, while in real life, Frank Grillo and Joel Kinnaman are only about 14 years apart, nerds, we really need to let that shit go. Seriously. And that's it. James Gunn has already said that the cameo, listen up nerds, the cameo with the Justice League at the end of Peacemaker will never be mentioned again. Therefore, because it will never be mentioned in the new DCU, say it with me nerds, it's not canon. Although, side note, Aquaman fucking fish is a rumor I am 100% positive is going to make its way over to the new DCU, therefore making it canon. I'm also sure there may be one or two other references to the DCEU that will make their way into canon in this new DCU as time goes on. But for now, that's all we got. Okay, nerds? Shut up about it. Jeez. General audience members, come on back in, alright? Come on back in. I'm done talking to the nerds, alright? Okay, now that we're all back here, please let's move on. It looks like the big bad this season is Cersei. She doesn't really show up until the second episode, but when she does make herself known, she leaves a trail of mayhem and destruction in her wake. In the comics, Cersei is a Wonder Woman villain, but Wonder Woman is nowhere to be found in either episode. There's no mention of her at all. In fact, in this universe, there's even a question whether or not the Mascara and the Amazons even exist. However, Cersei has proclaimed herself the rightful ruler of the island and has gathered together what looks like a whole bunch of incels to help her find it and rule it by her side. To do this, they have to conquer the Eastern European country of Pokolistan. Why? Girl, who knows? But blowing shit up and conquering women seems to be enough to get these incels on board, so here we are. The Creature Commandos are sent to Pokolistan to protect the Princess Iana Rostovic, because it's in the U.S.'s best interest to keep Pokolistan free. Because why? It may be a backward country, but it's oil rich. So there's that. So again, where is Wonder Woman? My current theory is that the world hasn't been introduced to her yet, especially since the very notion of whether or not the Mascara and Amazons are even real is something that's real enough to even be discussed on GBS. If Wonder Woman were here, it wouldn't be a question at all. Now, if I'm correct about that, we will be getting a brand new Wonder Woman that no one's ever heard of before. Now, I've already made my peace with Gal Gadot not returning as Wonder Woman, but this right here seems to confirm it. Now, James Gunn has already said they're working on a Paradise Lost series that focuses on the Amazons and Themyscira. Think Game of Thrones for the Sapphic set, right? And apparently this show will take place before Diana is even born. So they do have plans for Diana. It's just that those plans won't see the light of day for a while, and certainly not on this show. That is, if my theory is correct. We'll see. So how many butter pumps will Creature Commandos get? 4. That's right, 4 butter pumps. Despite it giving Suicide Squad 3.0 vibes, it really does stand on its own 2 feet. In fact, if there was no such thing as a Suicide Squad, this show would get 5 butter pumps. It's just that good. But unfortunately, the comparisons are there for a reason. But thanks to James Gunn's writing, this show has a real strong chance of being its own wonderful thing. Again, definitely not for the kiddos, but a damn good time for the rest of us. So now I turn it over to you, my beautiful butter babies. Have you seen Creature Commandos? If so, what did you think? How many butter pumps would you give it? Sound off down below. I want to hear all about it. Thank you so much for watching, liking, commenting, and subscribing. And I will see you in the next one. Bye.